Welcome to week 3 of our book study on Linda Dillow's Creative Counterpart. And this week we're going to be studying chapter 4, and we're not going to get all the way through it. We're going to only get through the first 2 points. But the title of this chapter was called The Priority Planner. In the beginning of the chapter, Linda Dillow tells of her friend that counted how many days she would have if she lived to X amount of years. And her friend figured out she had about 14,600 days. Her friend resolved to live each of those days to the fullest, but after a week or two, she gave up. She forgot about it. And the next time she went to calculate how many days she had left, she came to an astounding 12,000 days left. Only 12,000. Where had those 2,600 days gone? So I decided I would figure out, by my age, if I lived to 70, how many days I would have left. And I would have 17,520 days. And it seems like a lot, but when you think how fast a day passes, it really isn't that much time. Linda writes on the top of page 40, "What do we do with our days? How many of us just let one day flow into the next, the days into weeks, and the weeks into months until the years have passed?" And I can tell you, that is so true. When we're caught up in motherhood, it seems like you're just trying to survive to the next nap, or to the next meal, or to the next bedtime. And before you know it, the kids have grown up. And I think about Charity, how she is almost 13 years old, and where that time has flown. Or then I think about Mary, who was so hard, and now she's 2. She's a little bit older than 2. It's like, where is time going? It just seems to fly by. And if we don't take the time now to figure out where we're going and make plans for each of our days, we're going to have nothing to show for all those days that have gone by. So what is your goal in life? Have you really sat down to think about where you're headed in life, or is it just we're just surviving motherhood mode? Take a minute and think about this question and figure out, what are your goals and what are your priorities in your life? Go ahead and pause this video and write them down. Linda Dillow's goals were as follows. She wanted to be a godly woman and wanted to be everything that God wanted her to be as a woman, a wife, and a mother. Isn't that what we all want? But then you have to think, how am I going to accomplish that? We need to take more steps to accomplish those bigger goals. So the first priority on that list should be God. God should be our first priority. But how are we going to do that? On page 41, Linda writes, "One of the biggest and most common mistakes a woman makes is to substitute activity for God for a relationship with Him." And when I read that, I was thinking how easily you can say, well, I go to church, I go to prayer meeting, I go to this lady's book study, hey, I participate with Janelle on this YouTube video. I'm spending lots of time with God. But like she says, activity for God is not the same as a relationship with Him. If you're not spending time with Him, devotional time with Him, you aren't spending quality time with Him. It's not the same. You might be able to go to church every Sunday, but that's not the same as having quiet time and actually praying and talking to God. Linda Dillow writes on the bottom of page 41 about Mary and Martha, and how Mary just settled down and stayed with Jesus to listen to His teaching, and yet Martha was all flustered about this, that, and getting the house done, and getting the food ready, and everything. And Christ was not saying in this example that serving one another and cleaning and cooking, if that's not important, that's not what He's saying. But what He was saying is the activities in this world will never give us peace and joy of a vital relationship with Jesus Christ. We need to spend more time at the feet of Jesus. It's hard to take time away from everything that is vying for our attention, whether it be our children, the laundry, the cooking, maybe it's schooling, maybe it's the phone, maybe it's the internet. It's hard to take time away from those things and to settle down, and to calm ourselves, and to have time to read our devotions and talk to God. Linda Dillow writes on page 42, prayer, talking with God, is vital in building an exciting relationship with Jesus Christ. How can you create a relationship with someone when you only go to church on Sunday mornings? Think about this with your husband. What happens if you only talk to your husband on Sunday mornings between 9 and noon? Would you really know him all that well? Very unlikely. In fact, you probably wouldn't want to spend all that much time with him because you'd barely know him. He was a casual friend at best, but he wasn't your close friend. That's exactly what we do with God when we don't have a personal relationship with him outside of Sundays. So talking to God is just another way of praying. And when I was newly converted, I thought you needed to have all these special phrases to talk to God, and it wasn't. It was just something that seemed unreachable to me. And the longer I've been a Christian, the longer I've realized that talking to God is just that. It's talking to God. It's not special phrases. It's not giant words that preachers and pastors use. It's really opening up your heart and sharing with him what is really bothering you and concerning you. You know, nothing is too small to tell God. I mean, if you have a toenail that hurts, ask him to help you with the pain. I mean, I know that probably seems really like a really tiny detail, but there is nothing, absolutely nothing that is too small for you to tell God. On the top of page 46, we read, the rich truths of God's word have been compared to gold in a mine, with the big problem being how to dig them out. Today, we are blessed with an abundance of exciting study guides, Bible handbooks, and commentaries to help us with our investigation. But these are only tools to aid us, and they should not substitute for our own deep inspection of the Word. You need to evaluate your life and set a realistic goal for you. Just because your friend can get up at 5:30 or 6 o'clock every day and do her devotions before she faces her day doesn't mean that's realistic for you. As a Christian for almost 20 years, my devotional life has changed so much. I used to be that consistent person that I could get up every day at the same time and do my devotions. I could spend a half hour, 45 minutes reading and soaking up my Bible. And then I got married and had kids, and you know what? Everything has changed. And the more kids you have, the more that changes, and you just need to kind of roll with the punches, look for those opportunities that God presents to you so you can have that time. Right now for me, my time is usually between 1:30 and 3 o'clock when my kids are napping. I have to make a committed choice to stopping what I'm doing and to settle down and have my devotions. And that usually consists of 15 or 20 minutes. That's the time that I have right now. But I am so thankful that I am able to have that time because that's what's helped me to stay grounded despite all of the chaos around me, the kids running around, and just everything that happens in my life. That is the one thing that I can consistently depend on right now. A devotional time is not a law, but it's a relationship. So don't think, I've got to sit down and do another devotional time. Oh, I just don't want to do it. No, that's not. This is something that is a relationship with God. And if it's a drudgery, there's no point in just checking it off your list. It's just don't bother. Your relationship is going to be different than my relationship. And that's okay. That's how we are all different, and God's okay with that. And on page 48, Linda writes, your quiet time is a time for you to draw apart with God. It is a special time for you to talk over with him the events of the day, your growth in him, your concerns, your blessings. A quiet time is not a time to prepare your Sunday school lessons. Neither is it time to browse through your church magazine or even to write to a missionary. Those are good things, but that's not the time to be doing that in your quiet time. This quiet time is for your own personal growth with God. Period. As we finish that first priority, I'd like to encourage you to just take some time and to think about your own relationship with God and how you can try to improve that. Ask God to help you, show you how to improve that and how you can find that time each and every day to spend time reading your Bible and in prayer. The second priority is your husband, and this one was definitely more challenging for me. Proverbs 12:4 says, "An excellent wife is the crown of her husband." Sounds glorious, doesn't it? Solomon said that there are only two kinds of wives. You're either going to build him up or you're going to tear him down. Think about that. Which one do you want to be? On the bottom of page 50, Linda writes, Solomon also says, "A wise woman builds her house, while a foolish woman tears her down by her own efforts." Perhaps the foolish woman's efforts are really a lack of efforts. She gets in a rut and just stops making an effort. And that is so easy to do, is to just stop doing anything. I loved her section on the I love you period and how she thought she was a very loving person. And then her friend told her to take 1 Corinthians 13 and put her name at the front of each of those. So instead of just reading love and patience, say, Janelle is patient, Janelle is kind, Janelle does not envy, Janelle does not boast, Janelle is not proud, Janelle is not rude, Janelle is not self-seeking, Janelle is not easily angered, Janelle keeps no record of wrongs, Janelle does not delight in evil but rejoices in the truth, Janelle always protects, Janelle always trusts, Janelle always hopes, Janelle perseveres, Janelle never fails. When you hold yourself up to those standards, where do you measure up? I can tell you, I fail in a lot of ways on that. So you try that. Where do you measure up? I don't want to know how you measure up. That's between you and God. But there's probably some areas that you and I can both improve on. So who's first in your heart? Sometimes our actions shows that our children tend to be put over our husbands, and we need to change that. We need to show that our husbands are first in our heart. So how do we show our husbands that he's first? Because it's really, really hard to do when you have kids clamoring, climbing up your legs, begging for your attention, and they're just so excited to share life with you. How do you show your husband that he is still first in your heart? Well, the one thing she says is the little things mean a lot, and I can testify to that. Little things go a lot farther than the big things. Maybe it's putting a note in his lunchbox when you pack his lunch, and when he opens his lunch at the office, he sees a little note from you, and it doesn't have to be anything lovey-dovey. He'd be embarrassed to show his coworkers. It just has to be, "Hi, honey, I'm thinking of you today. Love, sweetie." I know of a lady at church that went to like AC Moore and got one of those wooden hearts, the paintable hearts, and I think she painted it and she wrote "I love you" on it. And what they used to do is she would hide the note, the little heart somewhere, and when he found it, he would think of her, and then he in return would go and hide it someplace else. And they would just have this game of hiding the heart, and when they found it, they knew, and it just was a reminder to them that the other person, their spouse, was thinking of them. Don't ever assume that he knows that you appreciate him, even though you don't do anything. Sometimes you need to write it down or show him explicitly that you love him. He might not show any emotion to you, but you know what? On the inside, he's going to be thinking you're one smart cookie for figuring out how great of a guy he is. If you've watched any of our YouTube videos, you'll know that we do a lot of things together as a family. But sometimes it's hard to find those little times for dates and things like that. Particularly with 6 kids, it's hard to find any babysitter who wants to tackle 6 kids for an evening. So a lot of times for me, my date night is on Sunday nights after the kids go to bed. My husband likes to wash the dishes for me, and I like to just sit down and chat with him. And that's what we do a lot of Sunday nights for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. We just talk and reconnect, and that is probably one of the biggest things we've ever done to keep our marriage alive, is just by sitting down and talking and enjoying each other. Date nights aren't always something that's going to be feasible for everybody, but when you think of a date night, don't think huge, don't think expensive. You think out of the box. Be creative. Sometimes it's going to your local grocery store, maybe picking up a sub sandwich, maybe picking up a little bit of food for a dinner, something you could pack for a picnic dinner. Go to a local park. It doesn't cost anything. Take your picnic dinner and just enjoy the outdoors. Oftentimes you can go to an airport and just park and watch the planes. Again, pack a snack, pack one of your meals, sit down and watch the planes come. It doesn't cost anything. Wherever you are in your life, it is going to be difficult to keep your love alive for your husband. Make sure your husband knows that he is one of your top priorities. We're going to cover the next priorities in our next week's lesson. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and leave them below. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And hopefully next week we will be covering the last 2 sections in this chapter. See you next week to finish this up. Have a great week, everybody.